Welcome to Lesson Plan 1, which is called Hello World. This lesson plan is one of a series of 6 that will take you and your students from no programming experience to a simple multimedia app in 6 stages. In this lesson plan, you will log into the USource site, go to your workspace and write your first USource app in the ELC programming language. You will learn the basics of program structure, learn how to use your first library functions, and also learn about controlling timing in an app. Please do take a moment to provide us feedback on this lesson plan. If you think that it can be improved, then please contact us at the email address support@usource.com. In each lesson plan, we provide you with a summary slide like this, outlining the learning objectives, new vocabulary, and resources you will need. We propose an organisation of activity, but of course you can structure your lessons how you like. Some ideas around structuring the plenary session and assessment are also provided. In each lesson plan, we also provide a list of new words and their definitions in the vocabulary section. If any of these are not clear, then please get in touch with us so we can improve these definitions. From here on, we will use language that means that you can use this video either for your own lesson preparation or for in a class with students. So if we use the word you, it can mean you as a teacher working through this in your lesson preparation time, or you as a student watching this video. In this session, we are going to create our first app using the ELC programming language from USource. In this first app, we are going to display some words on the screen, and then control the timing between messages so it starts to feel like we're taking control of the computer. To do this, we are going to have to go through a few steps. First, we are going to log in to the USource website. Your login details allow you to access your programs from school, home, or anywhere where there is a PC or Mac connected to the internet. Then, we will go to your workspace. This is your area for writing apps. All of the work you do is stored in the USource servers. Nothing is stored in the machine you are sitting in front of now. The process of writing an app is to create an app, edit the source code, and then check it to make sure it is okay and that the computer can understand it. Once you have checked it successfully, then you can run it. This edit, check, run loop is a sequence that all programmers in all programming languages do all of the time. To write a message like Hello World on the screen, you will use a library function called gfx.writeline. A library function is something that is provided by the USource programming environment to make things easier for you. There are quite a few library functions provided by the USource programming environment, which allow you to do all sorts of things like load and display images, make sounds, work out where the mouse is, or check to see if a mouse button or key has been pressed. For this lesson, we'll start with gfx.writeline to display some text onto the screen, and then we'll add another one to control timing called timer.sleep. But first, let's have a look at how we get to our workspace. We're going to need to log in and navigate to your workspace as shown on this slide, so let's see these steps in more detail. To log into USource, enter your username or email address, together with your password in the login area in the top right hand corner of the screen. Press return or click the login button to proceed. You should see confirmation that you have logged in. Your status will either show a teacher account, if you're a teacher and have asked for teacher privileges, a student account if you have been registered by your teacher, or an active account if you registered yourself. On the left-hand side of the browser is a vertical stack of buttons that take you to different parts of the USource website. There are buttons here that provide lots of information about things like library functions. There are lots of examples and a help forum where you can get more assistance. We may change these buttons from time to time as we add new features. If you click on the Workspace button, then you will be taken to your workspace, which is where you can create apps. At the top of your workspace area, there are 4 workspace buttons allowing you access to your apps, images, sounds, and data files. In this first lesson, we will just use the apps area. To create a new app, use the form at the top of the apps area, where you can enter the name for a new app and click a button to create this new app into your workspace. Enter the application name Hello World and click the Create New App button. The app will be created and you will then be shown the control screen for this app. The control screen shows a thumbnail image for your app, some information about your app, and provides buttons that allow you to edit your source, check your source, and run your app. If the checker finds a problem, then you should go back and edit your source again to fix the problem. Source code is what programmers call the code they write. It is often abbreviated to SRC, so uSource gets its name from you writing source. Let's look at this sequence in a browser.
Thanks, Emma. So here I am looking at my browser. First, let's log in. I'm going to enter my login username and password, remembering to type carefully, and then press the return key or click on the login button. Now you can see that I have logged in and I'm a student. Over here is the stack of buttons that Emma was talking about. And if I click the workspace button, then I can see my workspace where I can create apps. I'm going to create a new app by typing Hello World into the form and press the Create New App button. This has taken me to the control screen for this new app, and here are the buttons which allow me to edit source, check source, and run my app. There's also another button which allows me to run the app with the debugger. This is a way to run the app line by line and is useful for finding problems when we are writing our app. We will take a look at that later in the lesson. To write some code, I'm going to click the Edit Source button. That loads the editor. Let's go back to the lesson plan slides to look at some code.
This slide shows the code for our first app. Traditionally, the first code you write is a simple app to display the words Hello World on the screen, and that's what we're going to do here. The top line is a comment line, which are some words you write to tell yourself or others who look at your code what your app does or how it works. It is usually a good idea to have comments sprinkled through your code to make it readable. A comment is a line which starts with a double slash. You can write what you like after it, as the computer will ignore it. Computer programs are written in chunks of code called functions. Every app needs to have a function called start, so the computer knows where to begin. You can have as many functions in your code as you like, but they need to have different names, and the first one needs to be called start. The code that is in the function is within two curly brackets. You can have as many lines as you want, one after the other. The computer will run them one by one, starting at the top and working to the bottom. Here, we only have one line of code, which is a call to a library function called gfx.writeLine. A function call is the way you tell the computer to stop running code in this function, and instead to jump and run code from the start of the other function. When that other function gets to the end of its code, the computer comes back and starts running code in this function again. We will see more of this later. If you want to give the other function some information when you call it, then you put it inside some brackets after the function being called. This information is called a parameter. When you write your own functions, you can decide if you want to pass them any information in this way too. The gfx.writeLine function needs to be passed either a number or some words to display on the screen. We want to display the words Hello World, so we pass them inside quote marks within the brackets. The quote marks show that we are passing words, like when someone speaks in a book. Just a note here about uppercase and lowercase letters. In the ELC programming language, case is important, and the checker will make sure you have got it right. Keywords like function need to be uppercase. We've also chosen to have our library functions named with uppercase letters too. The editor shows if you have got keywords like function or library function names like gfx.writeLine correct by highlighting them green, as we'll see in a minute. So that's the code for our first app. Let's now enter this code in the editor we opened in our browser.
Back in the browser, I can see the editor, which is showing the template code that has been set up for me when I created the app. The first thing I'm going to do is change the comment so that we say a little about what the app will do. So let me just delete this comment, and I'm going to write display some words on the screen. The editor shows the comments in grey. This is because the comments are there for you to read, but are sort of in the background and your eyes are not drawn to them too much. We can see that there's an empty start function that has been set up for us. So what we need to do is add our line of code between the curly brackets like this. gfx.writeLine hello world. Can you see how the function keyword and gfx.writeLine library function call are coloured green by the editor? This shows us that we typed them correctly and with the right spelling. The two spaces in front of the code is just to make it more readable. Indenting our code like this helps us to see more clearly which code is within the brackets. This is good programming practice. Try to do it yourself, but you don't have to if you don't want to. When we are happy that we've written the code that we want, click the button called Save Source and Check. This will save the code back to the uSource website and start the checker to check it, like this. The checker starts and loads in your code from the uSource website. It checks to make sure it can understand your code and shows you a big green tick if all is OK, or a big red hand if you need to stop and go back and fix something. If there is a problem, then it should also give you some information to help you fix the bug in here. If all is OK, then as well as a big green tick, you should see a green Run button above the checker. Clicking this runs the app. If there is a problem, then as well as the big red hand, you will also see a red Edit button above the checker. Clicking this starts the editor again, so you can go back and fix the bug. So let's run the app. I'll click the big green button and see what happens. The app starts and you see the words Hello World on the screen, just as we wanted. Congratulations, you've just written your first computer program, a simple app that displays the words Hello World on the screen. Under your running app there are some buttons. Click the Edit Source to go back and restart the editor again. Let's go back to the slides, learn more about the editor and see how you can get your name on the screen.
Let's take a closer look at the editor and the buttons that are above it. The first button is called Go Full Screen. When you press this, the whole web browser becomes the editor window, which makes it easier to write your code. When you are finished writing, press the Escape key. This is usually found in the top left corner of your keyboard. The browser will then show this screen with the editor and buttons again. The next button is called Don't Save Changes. Press this if you want to go back to your app control screen without saving any changes. If you have edited your code, then pressing this button will lose these changes. The next button is called Save Source. This saves your edited code back to the uSource servers and returns you to the app control screen. The last button is called Save Source and Check. This is the usual button to press after you have changed your code. It saves your code back to the uSource website and starts running the code checker to check if the computer can understand the code you have written. Now, looking inside the editor area, you can see that your code is coloured, depending on what the code means. We have done this to help you write code that the computer can understand. Comments are grey. The computer will ignore these, as they are for people who are trying to read your code. Keywords like function and library functions like gfx.writeLine are coloured green to show that you have spelt them correctly and put them in uppercase. Text, such as the words we pass gfx.writeLine, are coloured in blue to help them stand out. It's important that curly brackets match. In other words, for every open curly bracket, there's a closed curly bracket. If you put your cursor next to a curly bracket, then it and the corresponding curly bracket in the pair highlight purple. Let's have a look at how the code checker works. When the checker starts, it loads your source code from the uSource website and tries to make sure that the computer can understand it. If all is OK, then it compresses it into a form the computer can understand, writes it back to the uSource servers, ready to run, displays a green tick to show all is OK, and sets a smart button above the checker into a green play button. Press this button to start running your app. If the checker finds a problem, then it displays information about this problem so you can fix it. We try to make these messages as easy to understand as possible. A red hand is displayed to highlight there's a problem, and the smart button above the checker shows an edit icon with a red pencil. Press the button to go back to the editor to fix the problem. When you run an app, it runs in a window in your browser. You can also run your apps unchanged on Android or Raspberry Pi devices, and outside the web browser on a PC, but we're not going to cover how to do that here. See the downloads area of the USource website for more information on those other ways to run your app. In your browser, the app window has some information and buttons around it. The name of your app is shown above the app. To the right of that is a camera button. Press this and a screenshot of your app will be saved into your Images workspace. In the top right hand corner is a coloured ball. This is orange while an app is starting, green while running, red when the app stops, and blue if you run the app in the debugger. More on the debugger later. Underneath the app window there are some buttons. A button to return you to your app workspace, a button to go back to the editor to make more code changes, and a button to run your app again. I said earlier that the computer runs each line of code, one at a time, from the top to the bottom. So to get the computer to display Hello World and then say hello to you, we need to add another line of code. My dad's name is Paul, so I'm going to add the line gfx.writeLine hello Paul. But when you add this line, you can add whatever you like. Let's make the change in the editor that we opened in our browser.
Back in the browser, I can see the editor open, showing the code that we wrote earlier. I can now add the new line of code after the gfx.writeLine function call we wrote earlier. So let me put that in here. gfx.writeLine hello Paul. So now the computer will run the first line and display hello world, and then run the second line and display hello Paul. Let's save and check the source, look for the green tick which shows that the checker thinks all is OK, and then we can click the green button to run the new app. OK, that all checked OK. Hopefully you can see that, and now I'm going to press the run button. And the app starts, and as you can see it says hello world, hello Paul, just as we programmed it. Now, do you remember earlier I said there was a debugger, and underneath our app is a button which says Run App with Debugger. Let's click that button and see what happens. So, what you should be able to see on screen now, if I just move things around slightly. Okay, so we've got our app window up here. The run ball is blue, which shows that it's running in the debugger. And on the right hand side the debugger has loaded, and this shows our code. So the app has started, but we can't yet see our text. Now the line function start has got a dark blue highlight on it. This highlight shows the next line of code that the computer is about to run. And to let the computer run it, we press the button called Run Highlighted Line. So this button controls your app running one line at a time. So when I click this button, the blue highlight moves down onto the next line, which is gfx.writeLine hello world. So what do you think will happen when we let the computer run that line of code using the Run Highlighted Line button again? I'll click it now. As you can see, the words Hello World appeared in our app window, and the blue highlighted line has moved on to the next line of code. Again, we let the computer run that line using the Run Highlighted Line button. And now we see Hello Paul appear in the app window. So hopefully you can see that the debugger lets you watch how the computer runs your code and allows you to step through the code one line at a time. This is really helpful when you are trying to work out why a program isn't doing what you wanted it to because you have a bug. To finish off this lesson, let's introduce a short delay between our Hello World and Hello Paul messages on the screen. So I'm going to press the Edit Source button to restart the editor. And let's take a look at the code back in the slides again.
To control app timing, we can use another library function. This one is called timer.sleep, and you can pass it a number which tells the computer how long the app should go to sleep for. The computer is counting time in 1/100ths of a second. This means if you want it to go to sleep for 1 second, you tell it to sleep for 100. And if you want it to go to sleep for half a second, you tell it to sleep for 50. Here, I want it to go to sleep for a second, so I'll use 100. Let's make the change of the editor we opened in our browser.
Back in the browser, I can see the editor open showing the code we wrote earlier. I can now add the new line of code between the two gfx.writeLine function calls. Timer.sleep 100. So now the computer will run the first line of code and display Hello World. Then in the second line of code it will go to sleep for a second, and then run the third line of code and display Hello Paul. Let's save and check the source, look for a green tick which shows that the checker thinks all is OK, and then click the green Run button above the checker. Watch carefully. As you can now see, the app shows the first line of text, then there's a delay, and then it displays the second line of text. I'll run that again. Look at the delay. Right, back to the slides.
Here are some exercises to help you think about what we have done and extend these ideas. That's the end of the first lesson. You've used your login details to log into uSource and found your workspace. You've created your first app to display Hello World and gone through the Edit Source, Check Source and Run App cycle a few times. And we now know how to display messages using the gfx.writeLine library function and control timing using the timer.sleep library function. I hope that was fun. Congratulations again on writing your first program, and please try lesson 2, where you can get an image on the screen.